MovieWeb.com.
Okay, now I just talked to Al Hannes next door, and I've got to wonder, with him being your leading actor and he's just starting to learn English, was it ever frustrating or difficult to kind of convey what exactly you wanted out of him in certain scenes?
I speak pretty good Spanish, so we mostly communicated in Spanish, and we were both very patient with each other and made sure that we spent enough time in pre-production going over the script, and really we were all on the same page about what needed to happen in the movie.
When you set out to write this, were you looking to sort of tweak the sports genre? Because this is really different than most sports movies that are out there, especially with the climax of the film. I mean, was that sort of your intent to kind of take that whole aspect of what a sports movie is supposed to be and turn it into something completely different?
You know, when you say it like that, it sounds like a compliment, and I wish, we didn't...
It is a compliment.
And I thank you for it, but I wish we were actually setting out to do something that grandiose. But I think it just started with the story, the nature of the story we were trying to tell, which is the guys you don't hear about. We didn't want to tell the Pedro Martinez story or the Sammy Sosa story, although that probably has a pretty interesting ending, as we're learning now. But we wanted to know about the hundreds of guys that go through this process every year and what becomes of them, the guys that you don't hear about, the guys that don't quite make it as far as they had dreamed of to go.
And what's interesting watching the movie is that it could almost be a tragic ending, but yet you guys found a way to bring some hope into the end of it. And I'm wondering, how did you, as the writers, how did you get to that point where you could have it be sort of a hopeful tale for a guy that doesn't quite make it in what he's supposed to do, but goes on to flourish as far as in his own life?
I mean, we think that the hope in the movie comes from his, taking his future into his own hands, which, some people might see as, quitting one dream, but we see as kind of a courageous act of, making sure that he was in control of what was happening with him and in control of finding a new community and a new life for himself and a new dream for himself. And so, in that way, there was always hope in the story for us.
And I think it comes out of interviews, too. When we went to Roberto Clemente Field in the Bronx, where the last scene of the movie takes place, we met all those guys. We talked to those guys. They weren't, some of them were depressed that they had failed, and some were very young and very had been released or had left very recently. But other guys were middle-aged, and they had gone through it, and they could reflect back, and you see that all the hope that these guys had, and they've lived their lives, and they don't have regrets anymore, and they have a family in New York, and you can't help but feel like that's a good thing.
And now at the end of the movie, are some of those people we see are the actual people that you talked to, or were those just a group of guys that were actually playing baseball somewhere and you went and talked to them and found out that they had been involved in these camps?
Well, it's a lot of those guys are real players, and they were guys that we met at the very beginning of our research phase. We'd heard that there were a lot of ex-professionals who played up at this field in the Bronx, and we went up there, and we were surprised to find that almost every single one of them had been a professional ball player at some point and had, made it to some level of the minor leagues. And so when we started talking to them, we learned about their stories, and they really helped in their research for understanding who this character was. And then when we were shooting the film and we decided that this is where Miguel ends up, at this field in the Bronx, we invited some of those guys back to just have a little documentary segment in the movie.
These guys coming in and out of the country so much, did you guys actually go back and sort of delve into what's going on at these camps? I mean, were you able to get in there and kind of sit with them while they're going through their classes and watch them on the field? Or was that all just stuff you wrote from hearsay and interviews?
No, we did research. We went down there as we were writing the movie, and we spent time in the camps. We didn't live with the guys, but we hung out in the English class. The guy that teaches the English lesson at the academy is the real teacher, and we just had him do his lesson. We didn't write that for him. That's really what he does. So yeah, we really got a sense for their daily routines. We'd get there really early and see when these guys ate breakfast, what they would do out on the field between 7 and 9, and then come in for lunch and then go back out onto the field. And it was really grueling and interesting to see how these guys worked in really hot tropical climate.
Now, did you guys start writing the script before you did that, or had you had an outline and then you took it and did research to kind of make it more of what you wanted it to be?
We, we'd started writing it based on what things that we imagined, and kind of through the process of writing, we came up with a lot of questions that we had that we needed answered. And then, once the HBO Films decided to finance the film, they gave us some money to go down there and do research. And that's where we really started filling out the script and making the script what you see now, and adding all those little details that we couldn't have, imagined on our own.
Now, how did being co-directors on this project sort of help you guys out with your film, as opposed to just being like a director and a producer? I mean, did you really come together to collaborate on this, like in every aspect of the film?
Yeah, I mean, every aspect. We wrote it together. We directed together. Anna was one of the producers. She also edited the film. So it's like we really got to go through every stage. We tried to get most of our fights out in private, while we're writing or editing, and not do that during production when there's lots of people around. But we could really get on the same page in pre-production, so that we really shared the same agenda going into shooting.